Black Ops 6 Season 4 Reloaded just dropped and they added a bunch of new features into the game. So today I have for you guys the new absolute best settings that you should be rocking if you want to actually enjoy the update. But the first setting that you should change is going to be the dismember and the gore effects. You want to make sure this is on off. It doesn't always crash everyone's game, but if I have this on, my game tends to crash more and I do get more frames, and overall it is easier to see and stay on target if you have this off. So I do recommend you guys to turn that off. Next up, we are going to be going over to the audio settings. A lot of this stuff doesn't really matter, but we're going to be going over the frequencies, which seriously makes it so much easier to hear those footsteps. For the audio mix, I personally like Sucker Punch, and I'm pretty sure most of the pro players do use this. Or you could do the headphone bass boost, whichever one you guys like more. Majority of players use the Sucker Punch. You guys can copy the rest of the stuff on here. Then we're going to go over to the configure frequency intensity. For the left channel frequency, I like to have mine at 50, 50, 10, 5, -5, -5, -5, and -5. This is more so if you do have a headset. I have the Kiwi Ear Orchestra Lights. This is basically like a headset. It's just I have like a mop on my head and I don't like to get the headset dent, and so I personally like the IEMs, and I do recommend you guys a lot of you guys to use them. I think they are pretty good. And so if you are on a TV, this isn't really too important, or if you don't notice the difference or you feel like it's worse, literally just keep it on 0, because then you're going to start to tweak on the game. And so just try those out, and if it works better, then that's better for you. There's also a thing on here where you can purchase like the enhanced headphone mode. It is helpful. I don't recommend giving more money to this company, but if you're trying to maximize those footsteps, I would definitely purchase that. And then they do a personalized thing, which I don't recommend that whatsoever. What I just gave you should be absolutely perfect. And then you're going to want to make sure you max out your microphone, your levels, so then you are going to be the loudest in the lobby. That's going to wrap it up for the audio and the account and network settings. Before we go over like the controller stuff, let's just go over the interface, because a lot of people skip over this and it is so incredibly important. So this stuff again right here doesn't really matter too much. We are going to be going over to the gameplay HUD, multiplayer HUD, or the interface layouts. You're going to keep this on standard. Go over to the visuals. Make sure your minimap is on square. You're going to be able to see more of the minimap, so then if a red dot pops up on there when someone fires their gun, you're going to actually be able to see them on there. For the compass type, this doesn't matter. You can have it on off. Minimap rotation on, radar off. Scale, I like to make mine a little bit bigger, but not too big. 120 is perfectly fine, but I have seen pro players at 150, and I've seen some at 100. So again, personal preference on there. Try not to tweak about it too much. And then I just keep everything. I like to lower the opacity by about 90%, by 10% to bring it down to 90. You guys can keep everything else the same. For the colors, you actually can change the colors of the enemies and things like that. Again, I like to keep it on default. I don't really like to mess with it too much, but I do see some creators keep it on yellow or orange, because that's the color that our eyes actually pick up first, which is why like stop signs or like the hazard, those cones are always orange, so then our eye picks it up pretty fast. But I feel like those blend into the background, and red to me just does stand out pretty well. For the color filter, you want to on filter too. It's going to make everything as bright as possible. For the color filter target, have it on both, and then make sure you max out both of those intensities, so everything's going to be as bright as possible. And that should wrap it up for everything over here. There is one more thing about your minimap. About your crosshair. You want this on static, and so just make so when you're hip firing, it's a little bit easier to actually know where your hip fire is going, since you actually be able to see those lines on there, as well as that center dot, which that center dot is so incredibly important. It basically just makes it so you know where the center of your screen is, so then you can move around the map while keeping that where an enemy could be. So all you have to do is ADS and fire your gun, and that's going to make it easier to hit that first shot. Therefore, you are going to win more gunfights. I like to keep mine on larger. If you're on a big like 70-inch TV or something, I would keep it on the largest. Most people just keep it on default or larger. And then you want the crosshair spread on, crosshair dot on, and you actually can change the color of your crosshairs, and I like to have it on that side. It stands out a lot to me. And then make sure the opacity is on 100. And that's for sure gonna wrap everything up for the interface settings. Do you want everything in Call of Duty without having to play the game? Then you should check out my long-term sponsor, Guapsi. Guapsi is a team of real players that will load onto your account to legitimately grind anything that you wish. And this goes for all the recent Call of Duties and many other games. They will even get you iridescent so you can flex all the cool rewards. Seriously, there's no risk involved, because they don't use an unlock tool. They legitimately play in your account, and I've been with them for a long time and haven't seen a single negative review. And so if you want to save your time and energy, check out guapsi.com. Now for the controller settings, I do use an Xbox Elite V2. This controller is one that I've been using for a very long time. I just like it because I have the paddles on the back, allowing me to actually be able to have good movement while also having good aim. And these are Control Freaks, and I've been using them for a very long time. You can go to Control Freak and use code CBAS if you want a nice discount. They just basically make it easier to stay on target, so you don't have to move the stick as much, and you can be a little bit more precise, and a lot of pro players do use them, so I'll have a link down below. And overall though, because I do have a fancier controller, I don't have to use my thumb to hit like the jump button or anything. I can play on the button layout default. But if you just have a regular controller, you can play claw, so then you basically have your pointer finger up here hitting these buttons while you're moving with this one. It's a little bit it's weird at first, but once you're used to it, it's perfectly fine. I did that a lot in like Black Ops 3 and things like that. And then if you just play super normal, you can do bumper jumper tactical, which is going to allow you to jump at that bumper, and then you can drop shot by clicking down on that right stick, allowing you to be able to take advantage of the omni movement while also having very good aim. And so I highly recommend this if you just play default, like if you just have a regular controller. For these sensitivities, majority of the pro players on like 1.4 to like 1.65. If you are on Warzone, you can go up to like 1.8 or something like that. And I believe there is like 2 pro players that do play on like a 1.8. And so don't tweak about the sensitivity. I promise you, it's more about your game sense. You can get literally used to max sensitivity. You're just trying to find whatever you're consistent on, which you can find that if you go play a private match against bots and just find one that you're very smooth with. Like the 1.42 is super good, but if you're using an SMG, you're gonna lose a lot of your gunfights because you can't really move and like snap onto them as fast. With an AR, you'll lock onto players, and so a good middle ground for me is 1.55. Shotzi, we all know him, he plays on like 1.65, and so you kind of have like a gauge of where the most of the good players are, and you can kind of find the one that you like from there. And then we are going to be going down over here, make sure all these are going to be on off. If you want, you can swap the bumpers with the triggers, and it kind of allows you to fire your pistol a little bit faster because instead of pulling down a trigger, you're hitting a button, which is a lot easier to spam. For the controller vibration, off. If you play with it on, it's going to feel very weird at first, but I promise you that with it off, you're going to be a lot more accurate because less things are going to be shaking in your hand. For the dead zones, you want the left stick max on 60, no more than 75 and no less than 45. And so now that we basically lowered it, all we have to do is move this stick from here all the way to 65% if you want to get to max movement speed, making it so you can, you know, just move. You can, it's like a faster reaction time in a way. And then for the left stick min, we have it on 1. You could have it on 0, but my guy's gonna automatically walk by himself, like, you know, forward. For the right stick mid, I have mine on 5. Even though I do have a little bit more stick drift, I still keep it on 5. If I go all the way up to like 10 and I still have stick drift, then I'll usually just get a new controller, which is like, you know, pretty annoying and things like that. But if it's like anything past 10, then it's not going to be as responsive, and you're going to feel like you have a worse reaction time, and you're genuinely going to be worse at the game. Given Celium, he plays for Atlanta FaZe, he plays on like a 10 or 15 dead zones, so again, you can get kind of used to things, and some players are out of the ordinary. For the right stick max 99, left trigger, right trigger 0. This is going to make it so the second you hit the trigger, you are going to be firing your gun. You still would fire faster if it was a button rather than a trigger though, because you're just clicking rather than pulling and releasing, if that makes sense. And then, so now we're going to be going over to the aiming settings. Sensitivity multiplier, since my sense is still like a little bit on the slower end, keep everything at 1.0, but I used to actually play on 0.8 and then 1.42, and I was so accurate with an AR, but SMGs is just a little bit wonky, and so I just like to keep mine everything on normal. And then the aiming advanced settings, this only applies if you have a sensitivity multiplier on here. Say it was at like 0.80, and then I go over here and I have this on gradual. That means as I'm ADSing, it's slowly getting down to 80%, but because it's the same across the board, this part isn't going to really matter at all. A lot of pro players play on instant, and a lot of pro players play on gradual. You really just got to find what works for you, whatever you're most consistent with. For the aim response curve type, you want to make sure this is on dynamic. This is why the newer Call of Duties feel so sticky, because of the dynamic, and there's just, you know, more aim assist in the game. And then what we can do over here as well is lower it. The lower you go, the basically less aim assist that you have. It goes closer to linear, which is helpful. So for some players like Havoc, he got number 1 on this game in season 1, and he had his on 0.92 just because he didn't want to be as sticky. But I've never seen anyone go lower than 0.92, and most players I think just keep it at like 1.0, so don't mess with it too much. For the movement tab, I'm gonna have my tactical sprint assist on. This is pretty cheesy, and it actually can get you killed at times. So now when I move that left stick forward, my guy's gonna automatically tactical sprint, which is helpful because I don't have to mash that left stick in. But if you're tactical sprinting and someone's just sprinting, they're probably gonna win the gunfight because there's a long delay from going attack sprint into fire, rather than sprinting into a fire. And so that's where it can get you killed, but then you gotta like, you know, click on that left stick a lot. And pro players, this is actually banned in the game, but I think just majority of them like it on. It's just I don't want to have to think as much when I'm playing. And in Warzone, you do want the tactical sprint assist on for sure. Sprint assist delay 0, you want everything to be very responsive, and then you want the sprint assist on for the backwards and the sideways. Manto assist off, and then we're gonna have the crouch assist off, corner slice off, slide slash dive behavior. I'm gonna keep this on the hybrid. This is gonna allow you to dolphin dive by holding down on that left stick, and well, no, by clicking the slide button and holding down on the right stick. So you kind of have to do a combo. If you don't ever dive, literally just put it on slide only. Don't do any of the other ones though, because then you are gonna have a delay, because the game doesn't know if you're tapping or if you're holding, so it feels very sluggish, and the game feels so much better when you put it on slide only or on the hybrid. And then we're gonna go sprint restore on, slide maintain sprint on, parachute automatic behavior off, mantle cancels reload off, movement advanced settings, we're going to keep everything the same, well, off and stuff like that. But then we're going to go over here and put on single tap run. So if you do like click on that left stick to tack sprint, it's just going to be instant. You don't have to like hit it twice or anything like that. And we just basically want to reduce all the delays that this game adds. We're going to go over here, prioritize the Diddy, and we're going to armor plate behavior, apply all C4 detonation all at once, equipment behavior, hold, manual fire behavior, press, combat advanced settings. Going to basically go all the way down here, and we are going to put it on prioritize interact. So if your gun if you're low on ammo, someone's chowing you, instead of reloading your gun, you can just pick up a gun off the floor instantly, hoping that there's ammo in there. And or if like maybe you kill the enemy, their gun's falling, you can pick up their gun instead of reloading yours, and you can just do it by just tapping the reload rather than having to hold the reload. Some players do like the tap to reload. Warzone, you have to have on prioritize interact. Overall, if you're not used to this, you're gonna hate it, but most good players do use that, so there's a reason for that. And then overlay advanced settings, directional buttons off, default. This stuff doesn't really matter at all. Now for the graphics, if you are on console, this is gonna look a little bit wonky to you. Some things aren't gonna apply, but just stay with me. A lot of things will apply. So for PC though, full screen board, well, you know what, full screen exclusive. I just got to use my other monitors and stuff like that. Sometimes my game crashes with the dual PC on full screen exclusive, so that's why I don't have it on there. And then everything else is going to be basically the same. NVIDIA reflex low latency. Some people's PCs better on plus boost. I get max 300 frames with it on, and so I don't do the boost. And my game sometimes crashes with that. We're going to do the optimal for the render resolution and keep everything else on there like that. Render resolution, you don't need to go lower or above that. Other Call of Duties you did, but this one you were perfectly fine with the 100. For the sharpening, fidelity, if you have a pretty good computer, or I think it's even on console as well, you want the fidelity. This seriously makes everything so much easier to actually see the enemies. I promise you, it is night and day difference. And then I just max it out, so just make everything super bright for and then yeah, just keep everything else on off. VRAM scale target, I have it on 90. Texture resolution, just keep it on low. I get 300 frames with it on high, and I'm streaming, so I want my game to look really good, and I have a lot of frames, so I'm going to keep mine on high. Texture filter anisotropic low. Depth of field off. Please take that off. Oh my God, I don't even know why default it's on. For the detail quality, low. Particle resolution, very low. Bullet impacts, you get more FPS with this off, but when I'm doing class set videos and things like that, I want to see where I'm shooting, so I keep it on. Persistent effects off. Shader quality low. On-demand texture streaming optimized, reduces a lot of my packet burst. Local texture streaming quality low. For the shadow quality, very low. Screen space shadows, if you want your camos to look good, have it on high. If you don't care, off. Occlusion and screen space lighting off. Screen space reflections, again, if you want your camos to look good, have it on high. Static reflection quality low. Tessellation off. Volumetric quality low. If you have it on high, the amount of light on certain maps like Vault is insane. You see like the sun moving, and it's actually like feels like a different game, or like new maps when you have it on high. It's kind of cool, but more FPS with it low. Deferred to physics quality off. Weather grid volumes off. Water quality on off. Apologies if I'm going through this a little bit fast. It's just you know, I feel like most people do want me to go at this pace. And if you guys do find this helpful, make sure you guys leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more helpful videos like this. Now for the field of view, 103 is very good for multiplayer. You won't really see anybody go past 105 on multiplayer or anything lower than 97. The maps are a lot smaller, so you don't really need to see as much. And the bigger the FOV, the lower, the smaller the targets are going to look. And so then it's going to be harder to hit those shots. Warzone, the maps are bigger, so you definitely do want like 115, 120. That's going to help you out a lot more. But for multiplayer, you will never see a pro player past 105. A lot of the optic team is at like 97. So ADS field of view affected, weapon field of view default, third person field of view 90, world motion blur and weapon motion blur, make sure those are on off, please, and then make sure these are on least. And then inverter flashbang, if you don't want it, if you want it to be black instead of white, you could have it on. and then the benchmark doesn't matter. And that should wrap it up for every single thing on here. If I missed anything, let me know in the comments, but I'm pretty sure went very in depth with it. I seriously hope it was very helpful, and I hope you guys do enjoy the update. Hopefully there's no bugs. Deuces.